Well, this is kind of cool. I learned something today which makes sense. The story of God makes rational sense. It's just mankind never put it together. So I used to come up and sit on Cemetery Hill over this little Nebraska town. And then one night I stayed too late. And the cops came. I have had more interactions with the cops. Not criminal, just weird stuff since this started. But it was like really traumatic after all I've been through. So after that night, we never came back to the cemetery. And this is where God's like revealed a lot of stuff. And I guess it was just a change in seasons. Ever since that night, well, it had looked like Yahweh was getting the upper hand for a while. But the night the cops came, Satan took over. And I've pretty much been suffering miserable ever since. But it's been bearable. But there's been no hope. So anyway, today he said it's time to come back up to Cemetery Hill. And before I left, my mom said, I read that there are demons in cemeteries. And then my mind flashed to the biblical story where there was a possessed man. They kept him in chains in the tombs or cemetery, essentially. And I said to my mom, well, there's a few cemeteries that have some bad activity, but I was remembering all the stuff I know about cemeteries and how much I've enjoyed them in my life. I think he's revealing something, so if I'm a little slow to speak. So, I used to go visit a cemetery when I was in high school, me and my good friend, and we'd walk through this neighborhood called Shiloh to get there. And anyway, sometimes when I was sad or feeling like teenage angst, spiritual, just didn't know what to do with myself, I'd drive to the other side of town and go to the cemetery. And whenever I'd leave, I'd feel great. So after my mom said there were demons, my brain went through everything I know. This is one of the ways he reveals things. It has to be like experiences and real world examples and months of decoding things. But anyway, so, also in England, I lived there for a month once, if that's considered living there. But they had a church with a cemetery, and I just was drawn to it, and I took pictures of it, and I've always felt such peace in a cemetery. So after a few minutes, he revealed to me with my mom that cemeteries are actually the most spiritually, righteously attuned places on earth. And I figured that out because last time I was up here, he showed me. Now, I don't know about in Europe, but they go back a long ways. He showed me last time I was up here that when a cemetery is created, mankind doesn't mess with it. They, we've had a change of season, so, um, so he showed me how once a cemetery is established, it takes like so many generations before anyone will touch that ground that now he's got me listening to the birds. So like this town where I guess live now has had this cemetery. Like, this land has been nothing else that we know of. It would be eons ago. So the earth is new in that sense, or old. Ooh, okay. So here's the most impressive thing about this. God, in many ways, has played this it's not a joke on humans, but it's a way that, okay. Why do people come to cemeteries? They come to cemeteries because they loved someone. I mean, there's ulterior motives such as wills and whatnot. But in general, the reason people come to cemeteries, it's sad, but the only reason there's sadness is because of love. And he wanted, I told you that he has this GPS system where everything on earth serves a purpose. And the land allocated to cemeteries, he has been able to do very specific spiritual battle with because they remain at peace at all times. People don't go near them. Some of that reason is out of respect, and some of it is out of fear. And when she said she'd read an article that there were demons in cemeteries, he started laughing. And he said, "Yeah, I did that. What a perfect way to keep the spiritual air clear." And for some reason, I've never been bothered at all by cemeteries. I've found them to be peaceful and wonderful places. So by allowing, so cemetery ground is his, except in a handful of different places on earth where he had, well, he lost a round with Hasatan. But in general, cemeteries, God has made sure that mankind stays out of them kind of as much as possible. by giving people kind of an inborn discomfort with it. He's pointing out how if you're coming to visit somebody, you don't have that creepy feeling. And that's because when you go to visit someone at the cemetery, like if you went by yourself to talk to someone, you are doing that out of deep love or loss, but the loss hurts because you loved them so much. Although there are plenty of instances where people go to cemeteries to, yell at the person, but they need that. So the reason people come to cemeteries is to connect with their loved one. So God has rules that he keeps the spiritual space of cemeteries as clear as possible. And then he can give more comfort and more connection to people that come to visit their loved ones, because God is love. And if you come out of love, God has the legal right to give you more comfort, more wisdom, more understanding. He can do that if you take the time to come love somebody and spend that spiritual time with them. And then he's convinced people, and especially he can add this fear to someone, that they deeply fear or are disgusted by cemeteries. And that keeps those nasty people out of this safe space. People that don't love other people never visit cemeteries. Why would they? It's only the true children of God who go, unless they're coming to bitch someone out. I guess that must happen a lot. Oh, and he's saying in those moments, he really tries to give people wisdom. And some people's souls will allow that wisdom to rise up, and some people's souls continue to just get angrier and angrier. They can't see any compassion. They can't see anyone else's perspective but their own. Now all I can think about is that the police might show up. And it really just stayed that night. It was around the 4th of July. So it's been almost over 2-ish months. Oh, I forgot to tell you. So he always has me come and sit down in the same exact place overlooking this valley. And he has me sit next to a gravestone for someone that shares the name of my son's first name. And he had me look down on it today. Today is August 22nd. He had me look down on it today, and the date is, I guess I can just show you, August 23rd, 2003. So it was clearly a stillborn baby. And I was thinking about that because I started to feel bad for a minute that this young boy didn't get to do his suffering on this earth and work for God. But then he said something about how when people take the time to make a headstone for a baby that died the day it was born, there's love, deep love. And since they've never met that baby, what they're actually loving is God. They've never met the child, and yet they are heartbroken that it's gone. This is love. So anyway, I guess those baby souls also enhance the holiness of sacred ground, which we call cemetery. He keeps putting whales in the sky, in the clouds. Just whale after whale, and there was a dolphin earlier. It's kind of funny. There's a new show on Netflix. The Amazing or the Wonderful or the something. Attorney Woo, W-O-O. God had a lot to do with that show. Anyway, maybe I'll put a picture of some whales up. It's crazy what he can do with the clouds. Oh, today he told me to drive north for a while. So I drove north. And at some point in time, I looked to my right and there was a field of sunflowers. And every single one of them was facing the exact same direction. And it reminded me of one of my trips to heaven where I was in this big field and I was a flower and there were just billions of flowers around me and we were all just worshiping God. And we were so excited to be a part of whatever we were experiencing because it was the most joyous feeling ever to be a flower worshiping God. Anyway, I realized it was a sunflower seed farm. And for some reason, that just warmed my heart. It's like Farmville or those Sims where you grow crops, because every single sunflower. What? He's saying something about the sun. He said the sunflowers worship the sun. Egyptians used to worship the sun god. When I went to heaven, I saw ancient Egyptians worshiping the sun, and I thought, this is God. This is God. Everything exists to worship God except the things that don't. Oh. I don't know. To see that many fields of sunflowers was just, All right. Oh, um, before I left the house, he told me that in other cultures and at different time periods, human beings often understood that the cemetery was a holy place. So the reason in that Bible story about the man that was possessed and he lived in the tombs and he had to be chained and he'd get out of his chains, the demons would get him out or whatever. They put him there. Well, God needed him there, but in their minds, they put him there because it was holy ground and maybe it would purify him. Because God wanted people to stay out of cemeteries. He didn't want people soiling the ground. Most cemeteries don't allow dogs. And he made sure it's against the law to dig up known burial grounds. And it's like your homeland or something. He's showing me the native burial mounds. They go back there to worship their ancestors. But when I went to heaven, I saw scenes of this and I knew that they were worshiping God. But they felt their ancestors when they were there, and that love for their ancestors or for family. It grows and grows, and they protect it. It's honoring the sacredness of God. Well, some people worship the sacredness of God, and other people worship their ancestors. See, you never know who someone is. Two people can do the exact same thing, and one of them's wicked and one of them's righteous. He's saying, listen to this flip-flop. There are some angry people, some, let's say, enemies, who come to the cemetery because their parent didn't give them what they wanted in their will. And that's when an unrighteous person visits a righteous person in a cemetery, but you can always turn it around. Because there's righteous people that come to yell at and scream at and heal from the wicked soul they believe is underground. And they're both angry. And if you saw them from a distance, they look very similar. But they're complete polar opposites. He's got the whole world running like this. Everything's flipping. Because, see, he didn't want people in cemeteries because he wants his children to be able to come and find peace and be in a spiritually pure place. And he keeps the yuckies out. He keeps the no smiles out. If you've ever loved someone enough to go to the cemetery, just to spend time feeling close to them. That feeling you're feeling, it's like a string, it's like a connection, it's like there's some tension. It's palpable, it's solid. If you've gone to the cemetery, or even I've been to just returning to places on earth where I had a profound experience with someone, and I'd return later just to feel close to them, because somehow my soul knew that something in that place was important. I need to start taking note of how many of these things he's flipped around. Okay. Well, I think that's it for now. But anyway, I'm just looking around thinking how different a cemetery looks to two different people. Huh. Okay. Well. Okay. No. Stop. We finally have this change of seasons, and he's revealing stuff, and I feel like I'm getting closer to remembering who he is or being able to explain it better. But he's not letting me end this. But he's not really saying anything either. Maybe he needs a drink. I feel guilty when he does this because I feel like I'm wasting your time. He's showing me if he would have wanted me to be a salesperson, he would have turned my thoughts around. Because, see, there's two kinds of good. Instead of feeling like I'm wasting your time, I could be feeling, boy, I'm building up the dramatic tension. And then I'd probably do a better job of building up the dramatic tension. See, those are two behaviors that would be good. And then the opposite side of one of those would be someone that is not really caring. Well, they think they're so special, you'll listen to them ramble. They don't really care. Oh, but there's another person who doesn't really care. But that's just because they're so connected with God. And they figure if you're connected with Him, if you're unhappy, you can just turn it off. All right. I guess he wanted this to end it. Well, let me see. He's going to let it go until, I don't know, he's got my finger right over the button.